Jason, good to see you doing. Evening. Your first one in today, Jason. Good evening, Miles and CMF, free and fair. Good to see you. How you doing? Evening, Miles. Paul, good to see you. How you doing, Paul? How you been? Unfortunately, the live still doesn't come up on X. It only comes up essentially around my profile picture, but it still there's some difficulty between Restream and X connecting, so that it comes up on like a post. Good evening, Miles. Mike, good to see you, brother. How you doing? How's things? Yeah. Okay. Let's do intro, disclaimer, what we're going to go through on tonight's live, and by that time, everyone should be tuned in for the first part of the live show. Welcome to the CMF Live. If you're watching this for the first time ever, the CMF stands for Crypto Mouse Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday to Friday, 10 p.m. long time onwards for the most recent news regarding cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI politics, and regulations. Pretty much all the information you should know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. The disclaimer of this live, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. We also do Q&As in this live as well, which means if you do have any questions, put it down inside the comment section. More than happy to help you out. Now, this is episode 443 of the CMF Live Show. I was watching right now. And let me just give you a breakdown of what we're going to cover on tonight's live. We're going to talk about essentially Bitcoin slipping ever so slightly inside the market space. We're going to talk about essentially on tonight's live also regarding crypto taxing laws. Now, when crypto essentially goes, in terms of taxing, it shows that the market space is definitely shifting from speculative to mature. We're also going to talk about Stripe on tonight's live as well. We're also going to go through news on tonight's live regarding MicroStrategy. We're going to go through news on tonight's live also regarding, sorry about that, some international essential news to go through on tonight's live as well. We're also going to talk about tonight's live regarding essentially what's happening in terms of the US and Iran situation. BlackRock did mention last week that, and it wasn't just essentially BlackRock, but JP Morgan's analyst also, Nicholas, did mention a few times that regarding what's happening right now inside of the Iran and US situation, the talks that are going on, it's having major effects on the crypto market space. Because even though they're having discussions of peace talks, let's just say, if we can believe that, both sides of both sides of the spectrum, Trump is sending more military equipment towards the Persian Gulf. On the other side of the spectrum, Iran is still threatening the US. Even today, it was threatened again. That is adding more pressure on the market space, to crypto, to stocks, to bonds, to gold, to silver, to everything you pretty much think of. And things have really intensified, which is keeping the market space, you wouldn't say stable, but you could also say that it won't let the crypto market space breathe for it to be able to push up. So it's just stuck on one line, and it can only go down and come back to this line, go down and come back into this line. And that's just what's happening right now. So quite a bit essential talk for you on tonight's live, and obviously Ripple news to go through as well. Now, the first news is essentially just regarding Bitcoin, market space, and so on. Before we talk about that, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see what's happening there, and then we go straight into the next news. Sorry, we go straight into the first news. So let's go inside the comment section first before we go through the first news. Let's see where we're at. Mike, good to see you, brother. JP, good evening all. Good to see you as well, JP. How you doing? I got you on X. Really easy, mate. Let's go, Paul. Internet is crap still in the Caribbean for 1 week. All is good. Let's go, Mike. At least you're in the Caribbean. It's a nice place to be in right now. In London right now, it's raining pretty much every day, you could say. I share the YouTube over to X. Okay, Jason, thank you so much for that. Hi, Miles. How's things? Artistic, good to see you as well. Things are good. How's things with you? Scott, good to see you as well. How you doing? Hello, Miles of CMF. Miles, congratulations on program number 443. Let's go, Scott. Thank you so much for that, brother. Hi, Miles. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong, but X is not working properly. It's not you, it's just that Restream and X are having difficulties right now. CMF members, if you're watching this on X right now, could you do me one small little favor? If you're watching this live show right now on X, at the top, there's three dots. Click the three dots and click share to profile. It's the only way we're going to be able to essentially retweet this live show to get it out there, since the Restream situation still has been solved with X. So, CMF members, if you're watching this right now, please just take 2 seconds to click the three buttons at the top of this live show on X and click share to profile and just share it to your profile to get the live show out there. Hello, Miles and CMF Comatose. Good to see you. How you doing? Any words on XLM, H4, XDC, Flare, and SHX? No news so far on those ones. Hello, Miles. X Live had gone wired live. Pick disappears when you want to type the chat. Okay. Why doesn't Trump just remove the threat of Iran? It's because he's trying to do it from a diplomatic, essentially, perspective. You know, Trump is a very hated man around the world. A lot of people hate Trump around the world, and that's just, factual. And you can put it down to essentially propaganda from the media that made this man look like some sort of a Satan compared to the rest of the politicians around him. And he's trying to take a diplomatic route. He's trying to, not strike first and show that he did give Iran a chance to come towards the table, and they didn't, and that's why the war happened. If Trump just, essentially attacks Iran, then the whole world will blame him for starting a war that should have never happened, or any sort of scenarios like that. But this way, he can take the route of, I took the diplomatic route, it didn't work out, and then the war started. So then he can't be blamed at the end. Same, scenario you could say of the Iraq war situation, when they attacked and there's no mass weapons of destruction. When then they were, what happened during the Iraq war situation. But he's trying to take a different route, to say I did the diplomatic essentially route, it didn't work out, and that's why the war started. I don't see a free Morning Miles and CMF. Shelly, good to see you. How you doing? I don't see three buttons. Not three buttons, three dots. There's three dots at the top of the live show. If you click it, then you can click share to profile. Hi, Miles and CMF. Stormy, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, Miles and CMF. Bullock XRP, good to see you. How you doing? Hi, Miles and CMF family. Good to see you guys. Let's go for Facts News. Good evening, everybody. Let's go, Carl. Good to see you. How you doing? I only have three options when I click the three buttons: hide, timestamp, hide avatar, and okay. The three buttons are on the left, shared and posted. Oh, the three buttons are on the left, sorry, not on the right. The three buttons are the top on the left. Click it, and then essentially click share to profile. No repost option either. Okay, now, first news on tonight's live is regarding Bitcoin and the slip that's happening right now. So, is Bitcoin following gold because it's digital gold? No. Bitcoin is following tech stocks. Tech stocks are not doing too well, so which means Bitcoin is not doing too well, even though Bitcoin is digital gold. I don't know when essentially the title digital gold is going to be taken away from Bitcoin, but I think it should have taken it away a long time ago. Bitcoin essentially dropped below the critical $67,000 essentially support level, primarily dragged down by the deepening rout essentially in the US software technology stocks. According to CoinDesk, the high correlation between digital assets and high beta tech equities has resurfaced as investors reassure essentially growth valuation in persistent in terms of macro headwinds. The key drivers of Bitcoin's slump in terms of price. The software plunge, major software as essentially a software SaaS and AI-driven tech stocks have faced a sharp sell-off this week. All these companies essentially grapple with the deflationary chaos previously noted by Cathie Woods. The broader market is essentially de-risking and leading to a liquidity pullback from Bitcoin. The price action essentially lends weight to Mike McGlone's warning that Bitcoin inability to hold $70,000 is a canary in a coal mine for a US recession. The market is increasingly treating Bitcoin as a risk-on proxy rather than the inflation hedge title it's been giving all these years. The MicroStrategy sentiment, despite MicroStrategy's recent assurance, essentially that even if Bitcoin drops to $8,000, which I shared yesterday, the stock MSTR has been hit essentially very hard by the software declines in the software tech firms and so on, yet it's still trying to hold its ground. Interestingly enough, while Bitcoin and software stocks are sliding, certain utility assets essentially are showing relative strength. So who are these essentially utility assets that are showing strength when Bitcoin is unable to hold its ground? XRP resilience. Following its recent outperformance of Bitcoin and ETH, XRP is holding onto its gains more effectively regarding essentially what's happening inside the market space compared to Bitcoin. The utility error narrative is actually working out for Ripple so far, and it will work out, in my point of view, if we get a Clarity Act even more. As volatility increases, there is essentially a noted rotation into tokenized treasury and high quality stablecoins, with the $25 billion in real world asset market seeing its highest activity to month. I also did a Substacks on essentially tokenization. If anybody doesn't check that out, go and check it after this live show, which is edition essentially 6. It's all regarding tokenization of what's happening so far, and a simplified version of what is tokenization if you still don't understand it, which is perfectly fine. But go and check it out. Tokenization market spaces are really picking up right now. Utility tokens like XRP are actually holding their ground compared to Bitcoin, keep on sliding down. Immediate support. Analysts are looking at $65,000 marks. A failure to hold this level could trigger a flush out towards $60,000, predicted by bearish essentially desk at Standard Chartered Bank. Resistance. To reclaim bullish momentum, BTC must break above 68,500 on a high volume, effectively decoupling from the tech sector, essentially plunge. Is Bitcoin going to decouple from the tech sector and actually stick to the narrative of digital gold? By the looks of it, still struggling to do so. This dip essentially comes at a pivotal moment with the White House Yield Summit currently underway, and the reports essentially that I shared yesterday regarding the Bitcoin mining firms that also are not doing too well. If the Clarity Act negotiations this week yield a positive result for stablecoin rewards, it could provide a floor needed to decouple crypto from the falling essentially software sector. For now, however, the year of integration is proving to be a bumpy ride as legacy financial traumas continue to impact the digital frontier. Honestly, I've said this a million times and I'll say it again. The narrative of digital gold for Bitcoin, when is that going to be dying out? Honestly, I mean, there's people still like Michael Saylor who chant Bitcoin is digital gold. Yet, if you look at gold and how it reacts and you look at Bitcoin, there's zero comparison. I'll be honest. Before you can say there was some comparison between gold and digital gold, which is Bitcoin. Now there's zero comparison between gold and Bitcoin. And still, Bitcoin is following tech stocks, even though it's digital gold. I've never seen gold follow tech stocks before in my lifetime. But it isn't doing too well. However, there are signs of decoupling with utility tokens, especially XRPs, holding its ground relatively quite well, you could say, in this very bumpy, essentially, market space. Now, crypto tax is what we're going to talk about next on tonight's live. Tax is a big issue when it comes to cryptocurrencies. Tax is a big issue in general for everybody because nobody likes the idea of paying tax. But what does it entitle? Well, tax entitles that if they're looking into the crypto market space and saying, okay, now we're getting to a stage where we need to genuinely tax the crypto market space, it means that we're shifting away from a speculative space, which nobody cared about, to a mature market space. It also means the next stage is going to be institutions, because they can't have institutions enter the crypto market space without tax laws. Because these are billion-dollar corporations, and countries can make billions of dollars from them in terms of taxes, or millions of dollars in terms of taxes from them, not just from the company itself, but from the employees and so on. You get the drift. So if they're introducing tax laws and saying, okay, now we're at the stage, tax needs to happen in crypto, it's basically telling you we're shifting from speculative even more into a mature market space. And that's why they're doing it right now, because of institutions. They are the next essentially clientele into the market space. CoinDesk today published a high impact opinion piece detailing why this year marks a reckoning for cryptocurrency taxation. As the 2025 tax filing season hits full swing, the industry is facing its first real world implementation of the infrastructure bill mandated reporting requirements, fundamentally changing how digital assets are tracked by the IRS. Key pillars of this tax essentially reckoning. The approval form, essentially 1099-DA, for the first time, major exchanges like Coinbase, Kraken, etc., are issuing form essentially 1099 DA digital asset forms. This provides the IRS with direct data on gross proceeds and, in many cases, cost basis. The honor system, essentially of previous years, has effectively been replaced by a system that mirrors traditional brokerage reporting, which means in the past, taxation wasn't optional inside the crypto space, but it was mostly based on if you hold crypto, then come forward and say you own crypto so that we can tax you. That was the rules before. If you own crypto, come forward and self snitch, in other words. Now, the taxation rules are changing. It's more like if you are trading on a crypto exchange, the crypto exchange is going to share that information with us anyways. So you're better off just filling out this 1099-DA form so that we can get your taxes on the way. So the reckoning isn't limited to centralized exchanges. The IRS has increased its focus on decentralized protocols as well. The opinion piece warns that unilateral control standards discussed by the advocacy groups, especially with the United Kingdom's FCA. So if you thought taxation was only relatable to the US, nope. Taxation is happening all around the world. The US, Canada, the UK, the EU, the UAE, they're all connecting to each other. Japanese market spaces, Singaporean market spaces, they're all connecting. With the White House Yield Summit also currently negotiating the future of stablecoin rewards, the taxman is already clear. Yield is treated as an ordinary income. The report highlights essentially that the billions and trillions waiting capital must now account for real-time tax without essentially withholding on automated rewards. The IRS has reportedly deployed the new AI-driven tools to cross-reference on-chain wallet activity with 1099-DA filings. For those who forgot to report their 2024 or 2025 gains, the reckoning refers to an increased likelihood of automated audit triggers. The US government is going to be using AI technology, so is the UK government, so is the EU, to figure out, in terms of taxation, how much you owe essentially tax when it comes to cryptocurrencies. Now, they're basing this information on Coinbase, Kraken, Binance, Crypto.com. All these major crypto exchanges are the ones that are going to be sharing this taxation essentially information. Crypto exchanges like MEXC and a few other ones won't be sharing that information. Now, this isn't an announcement for you to go and use crypto exchanges that don't essentially share tax information with your governments. I'm just essentially letting the public know essentially which crypto exchanges are right now going to be sharing that information with governments and which crypto exchanges are not going to be sharing this information with governments for the time being. So Binance, Crypto.com, Coinbase, Kraken, OKX Exchange, and a few other ones are going to be sharing your tax information with your governments in terms of how much trading you have done, how much profits you've made. And MEXC Exchange and a few other ones won't be sharing. Again, there's not a way for you to, get around taxes in any sort of way, just letting the public know about the information that they should know about. Now, also regarding what taxpayers essentially need to know in 2026, feature new reality impact brokers and essentially reporting automated. 1099 Darius already knows you essentially your trade volume before you file it. So in other words, if you're using these crypto exchanges to trade on futures market space or anything else, it already knows that you're trading. Essentially, AI already knows. So in other words, the IRS would already know that you're using these exchanges to trade. It even knows before you even pull a trade. Now, I don't know how they're pulling that one off, but it knows. So cost basis. Transfer statements, moving assets between wallets now requires essentially record keeping to avoid double taxation. Staking slash yield constructive receipts and taxes owned the moment essential rewards are accessible, regardless of whether they are solid. Order to essentially risk is in high AI cross-referencing makes hiding essentially large on-chain transactions nearly impossible. The CoinDesk piece essentially argues that while these taxes essentially feel like a burden, they are the price of admission. For institutional legitimacy, BlackRock and JP Morgan cannot deploy trillions into a market where tax liability is a gray area. As I explained, it's very simple. If we want big corporations, billion-dollar corporations, pouring their liquidity inside the crypto market space so we can reach all-time new highs, then we got to have tax rules. Because if we don't have tax rules, these billion-dollar organizations pour trillions of dollars into the market space, and we don't have tax rules, then how's the government supposed to be making money? And that's the way they're looking at it. And therefore, these organizations won't also enter due to gray area situations. So tax essentially laws equals to billions of dollars in liquidity. That's why we need it essentially. By clarifying these rules, even through essentially a painful reckoning, the US is clearing the path for a $2 trillion institutional unlock expected later this year. As Bitcoin also slipping to the $67,000 for tax stocks, this could play out very good in the long run in terms of taxation laws. So, just want to make everyone clear on that. Essentially, is what's happening if you are living inside the United States or the UK or Canada or Australia or Europe, and taxation laws are coming. But Australia is, a bit far off. The countries that are more on the taxation side right now: US, UK, Europe. Everybody else is, slow in terms of reporting. But the US, UK, and Europe, they're a bit more ahead of the game when it comes to tax. Ironically, the UK is very ahead of the game when it comes to tax, when it comes to cryptocurrencies, but nothing else when it comes to cryptocurrencies. We still haven't got one regulation passed in the UK so that crypto can advance and bring some innovation or funding in. But yet, we're getting our taxation rules first. Now, before we talk about essentially the next news on tonight's live, which is regarding Stripe, let's go inside the comment section first. This was happening there, and then we go straight into the next news on tonight's live. So where were we at tonight? Let me see. We were here. Good evening, Miles. Michael, good to see you. How you doing? Alexa, okay. Do you think GTA 6 is releasing this year? Do I think GTA 6 is releasing this year? I think GTA 6 is going to release when I'm 50, maybe 60. I'd say about 30, 40 years we still got. Evening, Miles and CMF. Joe, good to see you. How you doing? Not too sure if this essentially is happening to anybody else on X, but the three dots are not working either tonight. Okay. Good evening, Miles and family. Ian, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Paid tax on the money I earned to buy crypto. Then they want to tax us on the money I've already paid tax. Isn't everything? I agree. Honestly, I agree. Hi, Miles and CMF. Peg, good to see you. How you doing? What up, Miles? Ray, good to see you, brother. How you doing? Share the live. Let's go, Scott. Yeah, honestly, I agree 100% regarding taxation laws. Nobody likes the idea of paying tax. Also, if you live in New York, what's the moron's name who's leading New York? Mamdani. Mamdani is about to increase the New York tax laws by 9.5%. I bet the people that voted for him right now are starting to regret. Don't forget about Miles' Substacks. Facts. If you haven't checked out my Substacks, go and check them out. Not now, after this live show. Now, Stripe. Stripe, essentially stablecoin firm, Bridge, has just won an approval for a national bank trust. Another essentially firm has just been approved to turn into a national trust bank, some sort of a neobank, you could say. So, a major shift in the intersection essentially of fintech and crypto occurred as Bridge, the company essentially owned by Stripe, the stablecoin infrastructure firm recently acquired by Stripe, secured initial approval from the OCC for a national bank trust charter. This development reported by CoinDesk is being hailed as a landmark victory for the utility era, providing Stripe with a direct regulated pipeline to the US banking system. So far, the only ones that have been accepted technically are essentially Ripple for the bank charter license. Paxos is still in the waiting lines. Circle has some sort of an approval, and now essentially Stripe's firm Bridge. With one, the direct essentially custody and settlement with a national bank trust to essentially charter Bridge and by extension Stripe no longer essentially needs to rely entirely on third-party essentially partners and banks to hold reserves or settle transactions. This allows them to reduce friction, faster 24/7 settlements of stablecoins and payments, lower costs by cutting out the middleman. Banks, Stripe can offer more competitive rates compared to what banks can essentially provide for them. The OCC's initial approval signals a major change in US regulatory climate. It shows that essentially the OCC is still open to the idea of giving licensing out to turn tech companies into banks, you could say, or neobanks. Also, competitive edge, this puts Stripe and Bridge in the same league, essentially as Paxos and Anchorage Digital and Ripple and so on. The global payments weapon. Stripe's CEO has long emphasized that stablecoins are the future of the internet economy and real-world utility. This charter will likely power Stripe's new pay with crypto features, allowing millions of merchants to accept stablecoins while Stripe manages the underlying essentially banking compliance natively. XRP and Solana synergy, given essentially Bridge's history of supporting high-speed rails, this charter could accelerate the use of XRP and Solana for institutional-grade B2B payments on Stripe's network, because XRP Ledger and Solana are both on Stripe's network. So is Stripe getting essentially a bank license through their other company, Bridge? This could actually work out well for XRP and Solana, indirectly, essentially. The Entity 2026 Strategy Status Bridge Stripe National Bank Trust Charter Initial Approval HSBC Digital Gilt Pilot Ongoing and UK essentially BlackRock build on Uniswap. All of these are positive things that are coming out so far. Despite essentially also Bitcoin dropping ever so slightly today, this is extremely positive news. It shows the OCC is still willing to give out bank charter licenses. It shows that the US is still open to the idea of innovation, even though Democrats and Republicans still cannot come to a conclusion on essentially yield when it comes to stablecoins and the Clarity Act. Other than that, the OCC is still open-minded compared to the Democratic Party, who's still voting against the regulations for the crypto space. So that's positive news. That the OCC at least is positive still towards the crypto sector. Now, MicroStrategy is what we're going to talk about next on tonight's live. MicroStrategy and Intesta essentially double down on Bitcoin aimed market volatility. If you think to yourself, strategy is slowing down on their purchases of Bitcoin, maybe because they're going to come to a conclusion to sell some of their Bitcoin, you might be wrong, because strategy has decided to purchase more Bitcoin. The data has came out so far today. There's also a major bank that's just came out today and revealed that they hold a substantial amount of shares in strategy themselves. Despite Bitcoin slipping below the $67,000 mark due to broad tech essentially sector weakenings, two major institutional players, one a crypto native pioneer and the other a legacy European bank, essentially banking giant, disclosed significant new commitments to the asset. MicroStrategy acquires another $168 million worth of Bitcoin was just acquired by MicroStrategy. Saylor's MicroStrategy MSTR continued its relentless hold strategy, revealing it purchased approximately $168 million worth of Bitcoin over the past week. The aggressive accumulation, essentially, this latest buy reinforces MicroStrategy's position as the largest corporate holder of Bitcoin. The purchase was likely executed during the recent dip below $70,000, aligning with the company's buy and never sell philosophy. Funding essentially the buy, consistent with the previous rounds, the acquisition was likely funded through the company's at the market essentially equity program or specialized debt offerings. This move follows MicroStrategy's recent statements that it could survive a drop to $8,000 by their debts. To investors, that Saylor essentially is unfazed by the current recession canary and warnings from analysts like Mike McGlone. In other words, Michael Saylor couldn't care less what essentially anyone has to say about Bitcoin slumping even further downwards, because the guy's buying. You know what I like about Michael Saylor? As much of an idiot he may be, but just be fairly honest, Michael Saylor is an incredibly smart, intelligent man. I'll put it back. He's a very incredibly smart, intelligent man, Michael Saylor. No doubt about it. But he's very hooked on the idea that Bitcoin is the only one out of the rest of crypto projects. And there's arguments all around. But what I like about him is that he puts his money where his mouth is. The man has said that Bitcoin is the only token for him. He said Bitcoin is the only one with the future. He said, I will never sell Bitcoin and I will continue buying Bitcoin. Since he's made those statements, he hasn't slowed down. So as much of a, he doesn't diversify, which is a very stupid move to do as an essentially trader, to be fairly honest, or as a company, you should always diversify your assets. It's the number one rule when it comes to trading, always diversify. But he puts his money where his mouth is. Even though he is wrong, in my opinion, he still puts his money where his mouth is. In a landmark move for the European traditional finance, Intesta, Italy's essentially largest bank, disclosed a $100 million position in the US-based spot Bitcoin ETFs. Mainstream adoption, this disclosure found in recent regulatory filings, marks one of the most significant entries into the crypto space by Eurozone systematic banks. The Italian bank, the European Italian bank, holds a substantial amount of strategy, essentially stocks, MSTR stocks. Notably, Intesta didn't buy just Bitcoin. They implemented a sophisticated hedging strategy as well. According to CoinDesk, the bank is using a combination of derivatives to mitigate the downside volatility while maintaining exposure to Bitcoin's long-term upside. The European shift, this follows the trend of European institutions seeking regulated also exposure, as the MICA essentially frameworks provides the legal clarity necessary also for banks to hold digital assets related to products on their money essentially balance sheets. Now, entity action significance MicroStrategy brought $168 million in BTC. It demonstrates unwavering essentially corporate conviction despite the tech stocks plunge. Even though Bitcoin is still following tech stocks, and every time AI companies go down, so does Bitcoin, MicroStrategy is not slowing down. MicroSailor is still betting on Bitcoin to be victorious out of all of this. These disclosures highlight a growing divergence in the market. The retail versus tech view, selling off Bitcoin due to its correlation with struggling software stocks and the fears of a US recession. The institutional view, using the volatility to accumulate between Stripe's bridge winning a bank charter and a Testa Italian bank coming forward, MicroStrategy sees the bigger picture. Look, I approve on the whole idea of the bigger picture. Yes, 100%. There is a bigger picture in all of this chaos right now we're seeing erupt around the world, which is causing the crypto market space, the stock market space, tech stocks, and so on to not do so well. There is a bigger picture on the way. It is the integration year. It is the utility year. You could see companies are essentially at a rapid pace hiring people. The data is being revealed. And now we're getting taxation, essentially lower updates. These are all indications that we are definitely positioning for an institutional run in some sort of a way. No doubt about it. But I mean, the guy definitely needs to diversify, honestly. It's getting to a stage that it could end bad for him if he doesn't diversify. Now, moving on from that to the UK. But before we talk about the UK, let's go inside the comment section first, and then we go straight into the next news. So let's see where we're at inside the comment section. First, we were here, I think. Yep. Miles, do LLCs help? Just your opinion. I thought to just pay my taxes and find multiple tax deductions throughout the year. LLCs help up to a certain extent, but it's one route you could pretty much take. There are many other routes. You've got to understand we're going into a digital world, a very centralized digital world, you could pretty much say, and being too public about your finances could also, you can see where I'm going with this conversation. And again, as I said, they're all legal. Just want to point that out. There are legal loopholes that are within the essentially law that you can use to get around essentially tax. But these are legal essentially loopholes, not illegal. Only legal only legal essentially laws loopholes can be used. To get avoid essentially taxes. LLC is one route. There are many other routes that are out there also. Direct message if you want to know more about it. Share the live. Let's go, Scott. Do not forget about Miles of Substacks. Let's go, Scott. And also regarding LLCs and so on, I personally would wait for companies like Ripple to catch up, or major companies that want to offer these types of services. I personally wouldn't buy it from random people, on the internet who are selling LLCs. It's the last thing I would ever do. The layout has changed on X. Miles of Substacks. Do not forget Miles of Substacks. Let's go. What? 9.5%. Yeah, Mamdani is going to be increasing taxes in New York by 9.5%. Well, the people of New York voted for that moron. Now they're going to suffer because of that moron. The layout has changed on X and it's not working the way we would have done it last week. You need to actually copy the link and then go to your profile and press the plus sign, then paste it to the link and share it. Thank you so much for that, Shelly, for sharing with everyone how to post this live show. CMF members, if you could just look at Shelly's comment inside the comment section to share this live. The layout has changed on X and it's not working the way we essentially did it. So you need to actually go and copy the link of this live show. You need to actually copy the link of this live show, then go to your profile on X and essentially press the plus button and then sign, then paste the link and share it. So copy the link, go to your X profile, paste the link and essentially share it. Hi, Miles. When is the Clarity Act? When is the Clarity Act? That's a good question. You should ask the Democratic Party. Probably not that far off, I would have to say. Even Miles, the live show came down so late. I didn't know why. I don't know why either. Good evening, Miles and family. I'm late. My apologies. Lena, no problem. Good to see how you're doing. I put some I put some screenshots in the group on how to share to your profile. Hope this helps. It's the long way around, but the only option at the moment by the looks of it. Thank you so much for that, Shelly. CMF members, if you go to the Telegram group, you can see how to share this live show from now on. Thank you so much for that, Shelly, for sharing in the group. Now, the UK. The UK crypto rules are too slow to support essentially global hub ambition, essentially, and warns in terms of other CEOs. Other CEOs, the simplest way to put it, news has came out on CoinDesk today that other CEOs are coming forward and saying the UK is moving so slow in terms of regulations that institutions might be deciding to shift away from the United Kingdom market space in terms of blockchain companies or tech companies because they don't see the City of London as the money capital anymore, you could pretty much say, as the innovative sector, because they're all shifting away. As I said yesterday as well on this live show, so many companies left the United Kingdom, so many millionaires left, so many billionaires left. A few banks essentially are moving to the UAE, neobanks, but they're moving to the UAE. None of this is good for the United Kingdom in terms of the money influx, because if big corporations start leaving the UK, then the government still needs money. And if they can't get money from big corporations, they're going to squeeze it out of us, which means taxes will go higher for the regular folks that live in the United Kingdom, which isn't good whatsoever. So, at one spectrum, on one side, the UK government is forcing companies to pay ridiculous amounts of tax, which is pushing them out of the country. And on the other side of the spectrum, when they do leave the country and there's no more money left in the UK, the government is going to squeeze the money out of us. At this point, they're just milking the UK dry. At one point, this country will turn into a Sahara desert because there's nothing left. The government's pretty much sold everything off. They'll get to a stage where they're going to start selling off trees and grass to make their tax money. Now, Andrew, the CEO essentially of the pound-pegged stablecoin issuer Agate, told CoinDesk today that the UK's slow regulatory progress is jeopardizing its goal of becoming a global digital asset hub. While essentially acknowledged that the UK's regulatory direction is correct, he argued that the pace of advancements is insufficient to keep up with the international competitors. In other words, the UK is going to have difficulty, competing with the US, the EU, Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, UAE, everyone pretty much. Although the UK government has reportedly committed to making London a crypto sector, he pointed out that the comprehensive legislations for stablecoins and broader crypto activities is not expected to clear the parliament until later in 2026. This means that formal implementation may not occur until 2027. We might not be getting any sort of crypto rules in the UK. The global competition. The CEO warned that the UK is risking falling behind the EU, Singapore, Hong Kong, the US, which are moving at a faster to provide legal clarity. Institutional versus retail. Agate is targeted that the institutional market, having recently registered with the Financial Conduct Authority to launch its essentially GPP, essentially Great British Pounds, a stablecoin back to one-to-one ratio with the British pounds. McKinsey told essentially institutional investors and critical for the utility era and essentially require a firm legal framework before deploying capital at scale. So even even the UK companies, crypto UK companies that are in the UK, they're struggling to even release stable coins. You know how the US is going back and forward on stablecoin regulations? The UK doesn't even have this problem because they don't even discuss the idea of a stablecoin regulation. Honestly, we are so far behind it at this point, it's just ridiculous. Moving on from essentially the UK being so far behind that it's just a race that we can never win at this point. The US, the EU, Canada, even Canada is more ahead than us. Australia, Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, everybody is ahead of us. Every single country, in terms of crypto regulations, in terms of AI regulations, is ahead of us. Even the US that are headbutting each other on should stablecoins have yields are ahead of us. Now, what we're going to talk about next is what's on the news 24/7 now. And it's one of the main factors of why the crypto market space isn't picking up. As you all know, the crypto market space is 24 hours, which means it's the first market space to get impacted by any sort of shock news. Now, the biggest shock news we could get inside the market space is a full-on war between the US and Iran. And as Nicholas, JP Morgan's analyst, and even Franklin Templin talked about it as well, that one of the main factors the crypto market space or Bitcoin is struggling to go up and essentially goes down and comes back to the same marker, goes down, comes back to the same marker. And Bitcoin cannot break this glass ceiling that essentially is above the $70,000 and so on, is that is because the Iran and US situation. The market is stuck because they don't know when the attack is going to be happening with the US, Iran, and Israel. And the market is just stuck. The crypto market is just stuck. It goes down, comes back to where it was, goes down, comes back to where it was. And that's what's happening to Bitcoin right now. So it seems like it's intensifying even more. If this war does start, the first thing essentially what anyone would do, if they get a hint this war's about to start, if you're a trader inside the market space, you would short the market space. If you're trading on the market space, you would short the market space because that would cause shock inside the market space. If this war happens, crypto will essentially start to dump, so will the stock market and so on. Everybody will be short in the market space. And then you can make a tremendous amount of money depending on how much you put down and what your leverage is. Too high leverage can also burn you out as well. So, what's happening so far? Today we had a lot of news, and it seems like the idea of an attack is getting closer than ever. So, if you're also saving money on the sidelines to buy more XRP at a cheaper price, more XLM, more XDC, HBAR, AVAX, Solana, whatever floats your boat. If you are somebody that's saving money on the sidelines and waiting for something to happen so you can buy something cheaper, well, it seems like that something is not that far off because today we got more news that the US has sent 18 F-35s towards the essentially Iran airspace. They also sent 6 essentially airplanes with fuel tankers. They sent 2 more carriers that carries just fuel for this war. And this all happened while there was a conversation happening in Geneva with Iran and the US. Also, the Iranian government closed the Strait of Hormuz, which means essentially any oil tankers that were trying to go past, they couldn't go past. That will cause oil prices to essentially spike up, essentially. And they decided to, after closing the Strait of Hormuz, to do fire drills, essentially, and, blow things up in the water. And also, Khamenei, the leader of Iran, decided to make a public speech that America always, this is word for word what this man said to Trump today. And keep it in mind, today was the Iran and US Geneva peace talks. Today, the leader of Iran decided to say in front of everyone in public that America always says they have the strongest army in the world. But even the strongest army will get slapped up. I'm not even joking. He said even the strongest army will get slapped up by us. The leader of Iran, during peace talks, by the way, said to Trump that he will slap up the US military. That is disrespect beyond what you can imagine. That the leader of Iran, of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Khamenei, saying publicly that he will slap up the US military and that they are not the strongest. And he said, even if they are the strongest, sometimes even the strongest militaries in the world will get slapped up. That's word for word what that man said. Hence why the 18 F-35s that took off from UK, that were US essentially planes, and went straight towards essentially the Iranian airspace. The amount of military right now surrounding Iran is ridiculous, which is a good thing, by the way, as I said previously. I want this essentially war to happen. I said this multiple times. This war needs to happen. The Islamic Republic of Iran is a cancer that needs to be removed. 1,000,000%. I'm Iranian and I stand with the US and I stand with Israel in this war. 100%. I want this war to happen so much. And it should happen, to be fairly honest. Because the level of disrespect this government has shown to the US and to every essentially other nation is, well, just picture it. He said he will slap up the US military in reference to essentially Trump. This man needs to be removed ASAP. So this is essentially what's going on, and this is what's causing. This is what happened today, and this is what's causing the markets to not move. The crypto market space is stuck because of what's happening right now. It's just stuck. Bitcoin goes down, as I said, comes back up to the line. Goes down, comes back up to the line. It cannot break this glass barrier right now because every time it tries to break it, some other news comes out with US and Iran, and it goes back down again, and it goes back up. It just can't break the glass ceiling. So the global community is watching a high stakes geopolitical drama unfold in Geneva. Indirect nuclear negotiations between the United States and Iran have resumed, but the diplomatic table is overshadowed by the massive military buildups and aggressive taunts and the looming threat of all out regional wars. 1. The negotiation status progress met with resistance. Vice President J.D. Vance confirmed that while some progress was made during the morning sessions in Geneva, the significant hurdles remain. The core of the deadlock involves Washington's red lines, which primarily demands that Iran permanently dismantle its high level uranium enrichments and halt its ballistic, essentially missile development. J.D. Vance also emphasized that President Trump is committed to a diplomatic solution, but warned that diplomacy has a neutral end. According to Omani and essentially Mediates, the Iranian essentially delegations is reportedly ready to stay for weeks to finalize an agreement, but they refuse to negotiate under what they term military duels. 2. Taunts from Tehran and military displays. The atmosphere was further poisoned by Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who used a television address to taunt President Trump. Khamenei dismissed the threat of US warships, stating that while a warship is a dangerous weapon, Iran possesses weapons that can sink that warship to the bottom of the sea. Referencing essentially this rhetoric, Iran's Revolutionary Guard, the IRGC, announced the temporary closure of the Strait of Hormuz for live fire drills. This move is a rare show of force in waterway through which 20% of the world's oil supply passes through. 20% of the world's oil supply passing through the Strait of Hormuz, which is the one that Iran closed, just for a little bit of time to do some showing off, you could pretty much say. Iranian officials stated they are negotiating with a finger on the trigger. That's what Iran said today. They're negotiating with the US with a finger on the trigger, signaling that they will not hesitate to retaliate if the talks fail. Both of these countries right now are going head to head. Even though they're essentially having negotiations, it's not going well because every day the US adds more military to the Persian's essentially Gulf, and every day Iran threatens Trump even more. The Trump administration has made its own leverage clear. Two US aircraft carriers, the essentially the USS Gerald R. Ford and the USS Abraham Lincoln, are currently positioned in the region. Vice President Vance explicitly stated that the US reserves the right to use military force if a deadlock is reached, which it will reach. The only way, essentially, this negotiation is going to be going down is with violence. I'll be very honest. Even if they have some sort of agreements, it's never going to work out for them. So even if they come on the news and say, yes, Iran and US have reached a diplomatic, essentially, confirmation, I'll guarantee you that diplomatic confirmation will last a week before they go back to the drawing boards again. The only way to do this is to end them. This follows the 12-day military conflict in June 2025, which saw targeted strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities, leaving the region on edge for a much larger confrontation. The impact assessment if war starts with Iran. A full scale conflict between the US and Iran would trigger a black swan event across global markets. If you were somebody that was waiting for this black swan event to happen, well, this is what's going to cause a black swan event. With Iran versing essentially Israel and the US, this is the start of a black swan event in the market space. So this will essentially cause, massive volatility around the world. This is what will happen if this war starts, let's say tomorrow or the day after or so on. The energy sector surge. Oil prices would likely skyrocket past $150 per barrel instantly if the Strait of Hormuz is blocked or if an Iranian oil infrastructure is hit. This would benefit big energy companies, but cripple the broader market, which means the big corporations would be earning so much money from oil if this war starts, whereas the little guy that pays for the essentially energy would not be and essentially would not be benefiting from this in any sort of a way. Defense outperformance. Shares in major defense contractors, Lockheed, Martin, Northrop, essentially Raytheon, would see massive inflows as US military spending wraps up. So, if you are somebody that wants to make money on the stock market, also, military essentially companies on the open market, their prices and stocks are going to skyrocket also because of this war. Also, the S&P 500 and Nasdaq would likely essentially experience a flight to safety sell-off. Increased energy costs act as a tax on the consumer, fueling inflation and likely forcing the Fed to reconsider its interest rate path, potentially causing a 10 to 20% correction in tech stocks, which means that's going to put pressure on what? Bitcoin. Why? Because Bitcoin follows tech stocks. So, effects on crypto because of this war. Initial flash crash. In immediate, essentially immediate minutes following an outbreak of a war, crypto assets often behave like risk-on assets, meaning they may crash alongside stocks and leverage traders as essentially are liquidated. In minutes, the crypto market space will crash. The digital gold test that Bitcoin has been given, following the initial shock, Bitcoin would face its ultimate test as a geopolitical hedge. The title that Bitcoin's been given for a long time, digital gold. Is Bitcoin going to survive this war as digital gold? It's a big test. If investors view Bitcoin as a sovereign grade digital gold, it could decouple from stocks and soar as people look for assets outside of traditional banking systems. Stablecoin depegging risk. This one could be very critical. If the conflict leads to essentially severe sanctions or disruptions in the US banking system, certain centralized stablecoins could face liquidity jitters, potentially driving a move towards decentralized alternatives or hard assets like gold. If we have a stablecoin situation, that will cause a very, very bad impact on the market space. A war. Here's the essentially macro bottom line. A war with Iran in 2026 will likely end the utility era of market growth and move world into a war economy footing. As noted by analysts, Texas Public Radio, an attack could boil the region, leading to a global recession driven by energy scarcity and supply chain essentially paralysis. Iran US nuclear talks, the final countdown, essentially, is what's happening right now. So, in other words, Iran versus US versus Israel. This war starts. The title for utility run is going to go away, and a new title is going to start for war economy. I wouldn't personally say the title for utility run is going to go away in any sort of way. Look, there's one thing that's not being factored in. The first time Iran was threatened very badly, they moved their assets onto crypto. The Iranian government knows that essentially it's the last days or last weeks of ruling Iran. They know no matter how hard they try, they are going to be removed, either by force or willingly. I doubt they're going to be willingly picking up their bags and leaving. It's going to be by force. Let's just be honest with ourselves. This is going to be a full-on out war. This will cause essentially a massive, repercussion inside the market space. If the Iranian government decides to move their assets on crypto once again to avoid sanctions and to run away from the country, it will cause the crypto market space to spike up. This is the only war in history that could actually cause the crypto market space to spike up rather than dump. Now, the market most likely will dump because of shock, and it's the first market to be impacted because crypto is 24/7. But then it might pick up due to the Iranian government moving their money on crypto to run away from the country, which happened the last time, essentially, that this happened. So that's also a possibility. So the idea of a utility run going away, I don't believe that in one sort of way, in any sort of way. But the idea of a war is, it's brewing up. Let's just say that the idea of a war is definitely brewing up. But then again, I mean, this is their own fault. Okay, they let the Iranian government to grow and expand for 47 years. Why? Because they're idiots. Honestly, we're so lucky to have somebody like Trump in power that can stop a regime like this who's causing cancer around the world, pretty much. But other countries beforehand let the Iranian government, the UK, France, especially, Russia, China, they let the Iranian government to grow and expand for 47 years. That's why it's going to take a bit longer to remove them. They could have removed them day one and never let this happen, but that's what they get. A lot of things will happen, to point out. A lot of things would happen. And that could be a massive black swan event. And the ways to make money in war, one, you can short the market space. If you get a hint of an actual war is about to start, let's say tonight. Two, you can essentially long your positions on military public companies in the US because their stocks are going to go through the roof. Bet on oil, that's also going to work out for you as well. Gold will probably spike up as well. You have to see if Bitcoin is going to decouple from this whole stock tech stock category and go up and follow essentially gold, or the Iranian government moving essentially their money on essentially crypto to avoid sanctions. A lot of things can happen because of this war. But the number one thing, honestly, I'll be popping champagne bottles. Yes, the crypto market space will be hit, but for my own people, I will be popping. I mean, all Iranians around the world will be popping champagne bottles for the downfall of the Iranian Islamic Republic government. Honestly, it will be an incredible day. And once again, after this war is done, Iran, with its new leader, the Shah of Iran, the King of Iran, will be a great ally with the US. Iran and the US will once again be friends, will be allies for life. And that's what we want, to be fairly honest. We're not really loving the idea of being allies with Russia and all these terror groups around the world. We love the idea of being allies, essentially, as Iranians with the US and so on. So, you know, I'll be popping champagne bottles when this happens. Yes, the markets will take a dump, but you can short the market, make some money out of that, or buy anything else you want cheaper. So honestly, if you are somebody that was holding your money on the sidelines, waiting for the prices to drop, this war could be a very good opportunity for you to pick up whatever you want to pick up inside the market space. It's going to be an absolute fire sale, a very, very big fire sale. Now, before we talk about the next news on tonight's live, which is regarding Ripple, let's go to the comment section first. Let's see what's happening there. And then we'll go straight to the next news on tonight's live. But as I said, I mean, the threats he's making towards the US and Trump, he said he will slap up the US army. Imagine that. The leader of Iran saying he will slap up the US army. That is crazy disrespect to Trump and to the US military. Honestly, if they come to some sort of a deal, that's a very bad move from the US after the threats the Iran's government has made. Let's go Miles. Let's go Scott. Let's go XRP, XNMX, DC, Pro, SHX, Flare. Let's go. What legitimate chance does Dodge and Shiba have? I own a small sandwich bag. They don't have a legitimate chance. They have more of a community chance, is the best way to put it. So we're going Dodge and Shiba. Elon Musk backing Dodge. Shiba has a massive community behind it. And Shiba is also used for money laundering, to be fairly honest, too. Miles, what about the oil in Venezuela? I'm sure it will balance everything out regarding the price of oil. Interesting perspective, Ian. I'll be very honest regarding the Venezuelan oil production. It actually could work out very well to keep the balance of oil. Good play, honestly. I'll be very honest. Maybe that's why they went after Venezuela first, to get control of Venezuela's oil productions to maybe balance out oil prices when this war starts. They're thinking about everything. I'll be honest. Also, massive warships are on their way to Greenland. The entire US military is in the Persian Gulf, but then there's also massive warships from NATO next to Greenland. Something's about to happen there too. Venezuela will just ramp up production. I think so too. Miles, what do you think about crypto, Astor, and Hype? Not big fan of them. Bollocks. Now they are controlled by Trump. I hope that day arrives soon. Sounds like he's trying to fire Trump to escalate it to a war. So you sound pretty sure this will happen. Um, I'm pretty sure it's looking like it. I'll be very honest. The reason why Trump took this essentially route, the reason why Trump took the UN route, is so that nobody could criticize him after this war and say Trump started an illegal war, because you know what the liberals and the Democratic Party and so on are going to say, because all their paychecks are going to stop. The amount of money the Iranian government is funding all these Democratic politicians, liberals, BBC. The BBC definitely gets funding from the Iranian government. 100%. The BBC, that definitely, in my opinion, gets funding from the Islamic Republic of Iran. As I said, the Iranian government is like an octopus. They have their tentacles pretty much everywhere. They spread like cancer. So many. If anybody comes out defending the Iranian government, I'll point it out right now. Any president, any politician, any CEO, any actor, anybody, if they come out of a high profile seat in defense of the Islamic Republic of Iran during this war, believe me, they are getting a paycheck from the Iranian government, which is going to be coming to an end. And that's why they're very angry. Or the Iranian government is giving them more money to start this propaganda video that the Iranian government is all flowers and sunshine. I'm telling you right now, honestly, if any politician, any CEO, any CFO, any actor, any athlete, anyone with a high profile seat comes out in favor of the Islamic Republic of Iran after they slaughtered 40,000 people by cutting the internet in 2 days, they slaughtered 40,000 people. If anybody comes out in their favor, believe me, they're getting funding from the Iranian government. It shows you who's getting funding and who's not. So yeah, slap up is a wild work. Yeah, honestly. Gold and silver will go up too. Yeah, gold and silver should go up. They normally do react in a positive way towards war. Will Iran win the war? Good joke. The Islamic Republic of Iran has no choice, no chance of winning this war. I mean, the US will, flatten the Iranian government if they are confident. No, the issue with the Iranian government is not that they're strong, it's just that they have a million soldiers who are mentally, who will strap a backpack to themselves, and that's what the main issue is with the Iranian government. Iran has 1 million soldiers who are ready to die. Not even joking. The Iranian government has 1 million soldiers ready to die to meet God. That's a bit of an issue. And they all don't live in Iran, they live worldwide. So they have a million people brainwashed that if they, put a backpack to themselves and do that, they will meet God faster. That's a big issue for the US and for the UK and for everybody else in the EU and so on. And that's what the Iranian government has. They don't have advanced military tech. They have 1 million individuals who are brainwashed that if they're willing to kill themselves, basically to do that, they'll meet God faster. That's a big issue for essentially, this war. They don't have any advanced military, just 1 million people ready to, you know, whereas the other side of the spectrum, the US, and anybody else with brain cells wants to go home after this war. They're not going in to meet God faster. They want to go home. The soldiers for the US, from the UK, for the EU, for NATO, all of these soldiers want to go home after the war, whereas Iran has 1 million soldiers ready to meet God. In their own words, that's a lot of people. I was in an aircraft carrier. What happen if the USA can't win and then the dollar collapses and all the US military becomes very weak? Is this possible? No. The chances of the US losing this war is zero. The chances of Iran winning this war is zero. The chance of the US winning this war is 1 million%. The chance of Iran winning this war is minus 10,000. I was on an aircraft carrier in the Persian Gulf in 2007. Something's going to go down for sure. Let's go, Ray. And it ain't gonna be and it ain't gonna be the carrier. Facts. Now, Ripple. Arizona moves towards a streak Bitcoin and XRP reserve. So let's talk about some XRP news on tonight's live before we come to an end. aimed at national security tensions. Also, Arizona took a pioneering step essentially in the streak sovereign reserve movement, according to essentially CoinGape. State lawmakers have advanced a bill that would allow Arizona to establish its own digital asset, or essentially reserve, using seized crypto assets, especially focusing on Bitcoin and XRP. Arizona State is about to be essentially creating its own reserve. And the two crypto projects they've chosen is Bitcoin and XRP. Typically, it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, or whatever. But Arizona State has essentially chosen Bitcoin and XRP. So, Arizona Street Essentially Reserve Bill. The legislation reflects a growing trend among US states to treat digital assets as a foundational physical tool rather than just a confiscated property. Seized asset pivot. Instead of traditional practices of auctioning off essentially seized crypto for fiat currencies, the bill mandates that the state can hold and manage these assets as a long term streak essentially reserve. The Bitcoin and XRP Geo, essentially notably, the bill explicitly names XRP alongside Bitcoin. The Arizona bill explicitly mentions XRP and Bitcoin, where Bitcoin serves as digital gold store of value and XRP serves as digital infrastructure, settlement liquidity. That's what it says on the bill. Lawmakers argue that a digital reserve provides a hedge against inflation and federal economic instability, a sentiment echoed by Mike McGlone recent warnings of that US recession. And the environmental impact of XRP versus essentially Bitcoin energy consumption is what we talk about next. As states like essentially Arizona consider holding these assets, the environmental, social, and governance (ESG) debate remains a critical factor. The TMA Street essentially recently highlighted the stark differences in how these two networks operate. Bitcoin and versus XRP in terms of energy, Bitcoin is using a tremendous amount of energy to maintain itself, whereas XRP in the same time period isn't. Now, how do we get these essentially data? We got it from Vet, who is a person on X, an incredibly intelligent person, in my opinion. If anybody hasn't checked out Vet's posts or tweets or so on, go check him out. He's an absolute brilliant man. So VET essentially shared the data on how much energy Bitcoin is using compared to how much XRP is using. XRP in the same time period used $76,000, whereas Bitcoin essentially used roughly between 8 and something essentially million, which is tremendously high. The energy efficiency of XRP is a major selling point for institutional and state adoption. While MicroStrategy and BlackRock have embraced Bitcoin despite its energy needs, the Arizona bill inclusion of XRP suggests a move towards a balanced reserve that satisfies both the hard money crowned essentially and the ESG conscious regulators. The advancement of this bill comes at a movement essentially of extreme global tensions, as we just talked about, the Iran situations and the US situations and so on. And what's the bullishness for XRP in this sense? So, inclusion in the state reserve bill provides a massive regulatory and institutional legitimacy, potentially fueling its current outperformance of Bitcoin and Ethereum. XRP being mentioned in this bill explicitly shows the confidence towards XRP, with Arizona stating it in their own bill. The reason why they chose XRP is because they see XRP as digital infrastructure for liquidity. Also, the essentially states as validators. If Arizona passes this, other pro crypto states, example Wyoming, Texas, are expected to follow and create a domestic arms race for digital asset accumulation. So, if Arizona is able to pass this bill with Bitcoin and XRP only, and as I said a long time ago, when these American states were talking about creating this crypto reserve package, they only talked about Bitcoin or Ethereum. And there was one or two states that said they'll go, diversify, but the majority was Bitcoin, Ethereum. Now this is a new change where Arizona is explicitly saying Bitcoin and XRP only. A very big change from the topic of Ethereum or Solana or so on, because it always was Bitcoin and Ethereum, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now Bitcoin and XRP. Soon it will just be XRP. On that note, we have reached the essentially endings of tonight's live. This was the CMF live show. This was episode 443 of the CMF live show. The CMF stands for Crypto Mouse Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday, Friday, 10 p.m. long time onwards for the most recent news regarding cryptocurrency, CBDCs, AI politics, and regulations. Pretty much all the information you should know about regarding the world completely transforming into this digital space. The disclaimer of this live show, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. CMF members, if you haven't already, retweet this live show somehow. Essentially, Shelly has put inside a Telegram group essentially how to share this live show. You got to click essentially and copy this link and then share it to your profile. If you can do that, CMF members, that'd be amazing. If you followed and subscribed to me during this live show as well, thank you so much. Before we do go, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's what's happening there, and then we will call it a night. So let's see where we're at inside the comment section. Is Iran Muslim brother? Yeah, they are very impacted by that. Hi, sorry I'm late. Hi everybody. Miles, XRP Den, good to see how you're doing. Better late than never. Let's go. Hello, crypto gang members. How you doing, Martin? Hi, Cardano is also included in the reserve stockpile. Might want to check out Cardano's latest achievements as it sits on the floor of where it usually bounces at lows. Nice price. Let's go. Cardano's a good project as well, no doubt. It got better as I started linking itself to XRP, to put it better that way. But not in the Arizona bill. Cardano is not mentioned in the Arizona bill, but it is mentioned in the US, essentially, stockpile. Yes, that's correct. Good night, Miles, and all the CMF. Thank you for the great live and news. Let's go, JP. See you tomorrow sometime as usual. Good night, Miles and family. Great live. Many thanks. See you late. See you tomorrow. Ian, see you tomorrow. Same time as usual. Thanks, Miles. I'll listen to this again. Let's go, XLP. Dan. See you tomorrow. Same time as usual. Thanks, Miles. Stormy. See you tomorrow. Same time as usual as well. Let's go, CMF. Take care, Miles, and all CMF. Ray. See you tomorrow. Same time as usual as well, brother. Thanks, Miles. That was a very, very good live tonight, mates. See you again tomorrow. Addy, see you tomorrow sometime as usual as well. Great live, Miles. Thank you. Good night, Miles and CMF. Jason, let's go. See you tomorrow sometime as usual as well. Thanks, Miles. Have a great night and see you tomorrow, same time. Artistic, see you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. Good night, Miles and CMF. Thanks for great news. See you tomorrow. Let's go free forever. See you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. Good night, Miles. Never been disappointed since the beginning of my first day in this group. Thank you, Miles. Take care and nice sleep, my friend. Let's go, Carl. See you tomorrow, same time as usual, brother. Miles, for all the innocents in the world who victim of globalization and prison wars. Prez, let's go, Johnny. XRP, good too, 100%. Let's go. XR, awesome live, Miles. Thanks, and Peg. See you tomorrow, same time as usual as well. No problem. Great live, Miles. Good night, brother. Let's go, Comatose. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Prayers for the innocent children. Let's go, Johnny. Definitely. Thanks, Miles. Lots of food of thought today. Thinking I might sell the small amount I have in profit on the exchange to buy at a lower price. It's a risk I'm willing to take. It's only a small amount. Why not, Shelly? If people do want to jump out of the crypto market space and jump back in, you could do as well before this war kicks off, if it kicks off. Night and bless. Let's go XLP then. I will see everybody tomorrow, same time as usual, 10 p.m., long time onwards for the next episode of the CMF Live, episode 444. See everybody tomorrow, same time as usual. Have a great day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world. Follow, subscribe, like, retweet somehow. Love you all. See you tomorrow.